Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us near the delta of the Muskeg River, around the town of Dillingham, Alaska. This area is very low in elevation, with few locations rising to over 100 feet above sea level. Given the low slope of the land, rivers and streams here wind slowly through the alders and tundra, leaving oxbows that rise and fall along with the tides. Muskeg is filled with chinook, coho, sockeye, chum, and pink salmon at various points of the summer, with the largest of the species, the king salmon, run peaking at midsummer. Nearby Bristol Bay is globally important, producing 50% of the worldwide salmon harvest and providing local fishermen with jobs. Salmon aren't the only fish in the Muskeg, as rainbow trout, northern pike, burbot, grayling, whitefish, and Arctic char are pulled from its cold waters by fishermen and bears. Caribou and moose are commonly observed here, and black bears, wolves, and brown bears prowl the shadows, seeking their next meal. Their survival isn't easy, and they must use all their tools to make it. On the evening of September 9th, 2022, 40-year-old John Casteel was hunting about 20 miles outside of his hometown, Dillingham. His family has lived here for 4 generations, and John worked as a commercial fisherman for the summer. His job freed up fall hunting season, which he enjoyed with his longtime hunting buddy Chad Feltz. Casteel and Feltz had been waiting for tides to prevail, which would allow them to motor their aluminum skiff up the river to their spike camp. Feltz's mother, whom we will refer to as Sandy, was a nurse, and a female friend, who we will call Nancy, accompanied the men on their trip. As the 4 Alaskans bounced and curved their way up the braided branches of the river, their pull-in at Portage Creek came into view. Knowing that it would soon be too dark to hunt, Sandy and Nancy agreed to stay at camp, while Casteel and Feltz went upstream a bit to glass for moose. It is common for moose hunters here to harvest successfully, and the men heard of someone pulling one from near the area they were going to go scout. They had subsistence moose hunting permits, and had purchased brown bear tags, so their options for a successful hunt were high, as were their spirits. With their skiff tied off, the hunters climbed up the banks. Casteel carried his trusty .270 hunting rifle, and Feltz carried an unspecified hunting rifle. Following stands of spruce and brush to avoid sinking into the muskeg, the men remained together before emerging onto an expanse of tundra. As the hunters walked toward the next stand of trees, Feltz drifted off to the right a bit, as Casteel made a beeline for the trees. Casteel was the one who was told of the location of the moose kill the previous week, and wanted to find the remains to see if a brown bear had discovered it yet. He thought he had a good idea of the gut pile's location, but his hunch was much more accurate than even he had thought. As Casteel pushed his way through the brush, he suddenly saw dark fur through the brush in front of him, only a few yards. He froze in place and silently hoped that the previous moose hunters had left a patch of hide behind, but then he saw the dark patch move. Knowing he was much too close to try a stealthy retreat, Casteel's concern grew as a huge brown bear head appeared from the brush. As the bear stared at him, head-on, from only 25 yards, Casteel shouldered his rifle and fired straight into the bear's massive chest, likely out of sheer panic. Now I bet I know what you're thinking. A .270 is way too small to take down a giant brown bear, especially from close range, and you're right. I've harvested a moose in Idaho with my .270, but my shot placement went through both lungs. It still took the 800-pound bull a minute or so to die, but Casteel didn't have a few minutes, and hadn't hit the bear through both lungs. As the giant Bruin's face shifted into an angry grimace, Casteel worked the action on his rifle to chamber another round. He fired into the bear a second time, before the bear charged toward him, now unfazed by 2 high-powered rifle rounds to the chest. Allowing panic to guide him to fire into the brown bear at a bad angle, his next decision led Casteel into another major mistake. He turned around and began running from the bear as it flashed toward him. After a few steps, he tripped, sending his rifle sailing through the air and landing a few yards from where he lay on his stomach. Now completely defenseless, Casteel knew he was in for one hell of a chewing. He interlaced his fingers and wrapped his arms around his head and neck. He was hoping the injured brown bear might forgive the wounds from his rifle, but one thing's for sure, brown bears aren't known for their mercy. It wasn't long before Casteel felt the immense pressure of the bear's jaws on his left thigh. With jaws about 10 inches long that can open wide enough to engulf nearly any part of the human anatomy, the bear's 2-inch canines punched searing holes through his muscle and skin. Casteel screamed in terror and pain as the brown bear bit repeatedly over the back of his left thigh. He felt the bear bite into his left arm just before the crack of a rifle sounded. Unbeknownst to Casteel, Felt had sprinted back to him and was looking for an angle to shoot the bear, but not wound his friend. Phelps walked up to within a few feet of the bear and fired his rifle 3 times into the frenzied bear before it stopped ripping and biting Casteel. Having absorbed 5 rounds from close range with 2 different hunting rifles, the bear took a few steps backward as its wounds sapped its energy. It still stood for a few seconds before wobbling and then tipping over. The brown bear had died, and its carcass now lay on top of Casteel's hunting rifle. Knowing killing the angry bear wasn't enough, Phelps ran to Casteel's side as he worked at the buckle of his belt. Wrapping the belt around Casteel's thigh, he improvised a tourniquet and began to work through his mental list required to rescue his buddy. The men had brought along an in-reach from Garmin, and Phelps used it to text Casteel's father back in Dillingham. Knowing Casteel would need immediate medical help to survive, Phelps tugged the .270 from beneath the dead grizzly and shot it once more, just to make sure, or perhaps out of spite. Tapping into some superhero level of adrenaline, Phelps grabbed onto his buddy's jacket and dragged him to his feet. Wrapping Casteel's right arm around his neck, Phelps packed Casteel several hundred yards toward the skiff. Casteel was beset with a sudden and severe burst of pain in his left leg. The pain-numbing adrenaline of the experience may have worn off, and he was no longer in any shape to continue. Phelps knew that he could make better time if he left Casteel behind, so he placed his .270 in his arms and sprinted toward the skiff. I know it seems illogical to leave an injured person behind, but Phelps' mother was a nurse and would know exactly what to do to save Casteel's life. He covered the braided route to Spike Camp and was rushing back toward Casteel within 30 minutes. As Phelps and his mother approached Casteel, the in-reach pinged with a reply text from Casteel's father. It indicated that a Coast Guard helicopter had been directed to their location, but it would be delayed a few hours. Knowing they had time to address Casteel's wounds and comfort him, they built a fire to keep him warm as they cleaned his wounds. They piled their coats on him to keep him from falling further into shock, but his wounds continued to bleed. As darkness crept across the land, the sound of helicopter rotors broke the eerie silence and brought hope. The helicopter crew loaded Casteel on board and flew him to the small airport in Dillingham. Medical professionals at the clinic there were able to stabilize him enough for his flight to Alaska Native Medical Center in Anchorage. By the next day, Casteel would endure one of several surgeries to repair the damage done by the brown bear's jaws. He was treated in critical care for 10 days, broken only by painful walks and brief visits with Phelps. On his visits, Phelps brought along pictures of the bear's skull and explained how he had made sure to harvest and retrieve the giant bear's hide and carcass in compliance with Alaska regulations. After allowing Phelps to recover the bear's carcass, an investigation revealed the fall from the prior successful moose hunter's moose carcass. The bear had attacked in protection of its food cache, and possibly out of aggravation by being shot by Casteel. They did not comment on the presence of cubs. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, link below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, and the $3 per month will go a long way in helping me continue to produce content like this. In 2022, there were at least 27 bear attacks in North America, with Alaska having at least 7 of those. One of them was the fatal brown bear attack on Army Staff Sergeant Seth Michael Plant. His attack was discussed in an episode on this channel, and I've linked to it in the video article below for your review. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Do you think the bear would have attacked Casteel if he hadn't shot it? Would it have attacked him if he hadn't run from it? Would the bear have succumbed to Casteel's bullets before he died from his injuries? The next time you see a dark patch through the bushes, will you make sure it isn't a brown bear? I'm sure it will run through my mind. I'll gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.